After a landslide in the Red Hills of Montana, 12-year-old Elijah discovers a row of massive plates buried in the dirt. They shine faintly under the sun, too perfect to be just stone. That night, he dreams of a creature with a back like a fortress and a tail like a war club. The name whispers in his mind, Stegosaurus. Strange sounds echo through the hills. Shadows pass across the moon. As Elijah returns to the site, the land begins to shift. The earth remembers the creature's steps. And deep below, something old is waking from the silence of time. Elijah lived with his grandfather on the edge of the Red Hills. Their cabin stood quiet near the cliffs, surrounded by dry wind, scattered trees, and layers of rock that whispered stories in silence. The hills were strange and wide, folded like blankets that had not moved for thousands of years. Elijah loved to explore them. He would climb high ridges, listen to birds, and study the soil. Most days, he walked with a stick in one hand and a sketchbook in the other. His grandfather, a retired geologist, taught him how to read the rocks. He said the land was old and deep and full of memory. He told Elijah that long before people, creatures with armor and thunder in their steps ruled the ground. Elijah believed every word. One morning, after a heavy night of rain, Elijah took the high trail. The ground was soft under his boots. Near the top of the ridge, where the wind cut strong and sharp, he noticed something strange in the slope. A line of dark shapes poked from the mud. They looked like stones but curved and smooth like the spine of some hidden machine. Elijah knelt and brushed dirt away with care. The shapes were wide and flat. There were at least 4 in a row. They were too evenly spaced to be random. He touched the edge of one. It felt warm from the morning sun but cold beneath. His heart pounded. He reached for his phone to take a photo, but the signal was gone. That night, Elijah could not sleep. He lay awake, thinking of the plates in the dirt. In his mind, they rose from the earth, taller than him, sharp and proud. He dreamed of walking beside a creature the size of a bus, its tail swinging, its back armored with blades of bone. The word came to him like a whisper, Stegosaurus. At breakfast, he told his grandfather. The old man listened without a smile but with wide eyes. "Show me," he said. They climbed the hill together. The morning was cool and still. When they reached the ridge, the plates were there, quiet and half-buried. His grandfather stared at them, then stepped back. "Elijah," he said, "this is something real." They marked the spot, took careful photos, and began to call nearby universities. A small team of paleontologists agreed to visit the site. Until then, they would not touch the bones. Elijah returned every day to sit near the plates. He watched the clouds drift over them. He sketched the slope and tried to imagine the full shape hidden beneath the earth. He began to notice small things, birds flying in strange patterns, insects vanishing from their usual paths, the ground shifting slightly beneath his boots. One afternoon, as he sat beside the fossil, he heard a deep sound. Not thunder. Not wind. A low thrum, like the earth humming. It faded before he could trace it. He looked around, but the hills were still. At night, he started to dream more clearly. He walked with the creature now. He watched it graze on ferns, tail swinging with calm power. He saw it move through a land full of giants, some friendly, some fierce. He saw it face danger, not with teeth or speed, but with the weight of its body and the armor on its back. The Stegosaurus did not run. It stood. It endured. When he woke, Elijah felt different. He felt connected to something older than words. In the days that followed, Elijah returned to the ridge every morning. The fossil site felt alive in a quiet way. Birds gathered in the trees above but did not sing. The wind passed slower near the plates. Even the sun seemed softer there, like it touched the ground with care. Elijah sat near the edge of the exposed plates, his sketchbook open, adding more detail each day. He drew the shape of the plates rising from the creature's back, wide and strong. He imagined its long tail stretched behind, ending in sharp spikes. Each drawing made the image in his mind more real. At school, he found it hard to focus. His teachers noticed but did not ask questions. His mind stayed with the creature. It felt like the earth had chosen to share something sacred, and Elijah had been the one to see it first. The university team arrived 3 days later. A man named Dr. Keller led the group. He wore a sun-faded hat and old boots. He knelt beside the fossil with practiced hands and examined the plates in silence. Then he stood, eyes shining. "This is extraordinary," he said. "It's a Stegosaurus. And it's in better shape than anything we've found in years." The team set up a small base near the site. They brought tools and tents, and for days, they worked under the sun, brushing and measuring and mapping every inch. Elijah was allowed to help. He passed tools, took notes, and watched every move. Dr. Keller explained things as they worked. "Stegosaurus lived about 150 million years ago," he said. "It was a plant eater with tiny teeth, but its back plates and tail spikes gave it protection from predators. Some believe the plates helped with heat control or to scare enemies. No one knows for sure." Elijah asked about the creature's brain. "Small," Dr. Keller said with a smile. "Very small. But brains aren't everything." As they uncovered more of the fossil, strange things began to happen. The sky changed faster than usual. Clouds formed and vanished without reason. Rain fell in narrow streaks, then stopped without warning. Animals, foxes, birds, deer, gathered near the camp and stared for long moments before slipping away. One night, while watching the stars, Elijah heard that low thrum again. The sound passed through the ground and into his bones. It felt like a voice without words, a message too old for speech. He turned to Dr. Keller, who sat nearby. "Did you feel that?" Elijah asked. The man looked up. "I felt something since we got here," he said. "Like the earth is awake." The team found more than bones. They uncovered a spiral carved into stone near the creature's tail. It was small and deep, too perfect to be natural. Dr. Keller had no explanation. Elijah stared at the spiral for a long time. In his dreams, the Stegosaurus walked in circles. It moved slowly, always returning to the same place. The spiral was not just a mark, it was a path. Each night, his dreams grew clearer. He walked beside the creature through thick forests and across wide plains. He saw it stand against hunters. He saw it raise its tail to warn, then strike when danger came too close. It never ran. It held its ground. One evening, as the sun dipped low, Elijah stood near the site alone. The wind rose strong, but he did not move. The plates glowed faintly in the fading light. A shadow passed across the sky, but there were no clouds. He felt the thrum again, louder this time, like a heartbeat under his feet. The ridge shook. Stones rolled from the slope. Elijah stepped back, but he did not run. From the corner of his eye, he saw something tall move between the trees. A shape, wide-backed, slow, and silent. It vanished before he could focus on it. He told Dr. Keller the next morning. "Dreams can feel real," the man said gently. "I was awake," Elijah said. Dr. Keller nodded. "I believe you," he said, but his eyes held caution. The dig continued. They uncovered the full spine, ribs, hips, and tail. The bones were perfect. No sign of damage, no sign of age. As if the creature had just lain down and become part of the earth. News spread. Reporters came. People asked questions. Some wanted to take the fossil to a museum. Others argued for protection. Elijah stayed quiet. He felt the fossil was not just something to display. It was a message, and it was not finished. He returned to the spiral. He touched it, and the stone felt warm. He closed his eyes. The world spun. He saw flashes of green forests and fire. Herds of dinosaurs moving across open plains. The Stegosaurus standing still as storms passed above. Its silence was not emptiness. It was strength. Elijah fell to his knees. His heart raced. He breathed slow until the vision faded. He knew the creature was still here, not in body, but in presence. In memory. In the land itself. That night, the dreams changed. The Stegosaurus was not walking anymore. It was standing still, surrounded by fire. Something was coming. Something fast and hungry. The air shook. The creature raised its tail. It did not run. It waited. The night the storm came, the hills fell silent. Dark clouds gathered above the ridge. There was no wind, no sound, just heavy air pressing down on the land. Elijah stood near the excavation site, alone, staring at the fossil. Dr. Keller and the team had gone back to the camp, worried about the weather. But Elijah had felt a pull stronger than fear. Something in the fossil called to him, soft and steady, like a breath from the earth. He knelt beside the spiral. His fingers traced its curves. The stone hummed. Suddenly, the sky cracked open. Lightning flashed across the ridge. Thunder rolled, deep and long. Rain fell in heavy sheets. The wind howled through the trees. But Elijah stayed still. In the downpour, the fossil glistened. The plates, half buried in mud, seemed to glow. The spiral pulsed faintly. Then, the ground shook. Elijah stepped back. The earth split beside the plates. Mud and stone broke apart. A long ridge of the fossil rose from the slope. But it wasn't just bones anymore. He watched in awe as the form of the Stegosaurus grew clear, not just imagined in dreams, but real, full, and whole. Not flesh, not spirit, but something in between. A shape made of earth and memory. Light shimmered along its back. The creature moved. It turned its head, slow and heavy. Its eyes, deep and ancient, met Elijah's. There was no fear, only a calm weight, like time itself had stepped forward. Elijah could not move. He could only watch as the creature walked past him, each step pressing deep into the mud. Its tail swung low. Its plates stood tall. It walked with purpose toward the far edge of the ridge. Elijah followed. The wind grew wild. Trees bent under its force. The ridge groaned as thunder rumbled overhead. Ahead, shadows moved in the storm. Not trees. Not animals. Shapes twisted in the rain, fast and sharp. Predators. Not like anything Elijah knew. Not wolves or lions, but creatures born of fear and hunger. They snapped at the wind, eyes glowing, teeth bare. The Stegosaurus stood between them and the fossil site. Elijah felt it. The creature was not defending itself. It was guarding the memory. The spiral. The history held in stone and time. The predators circled. They rushed, quick and savage. The Stegosaurus held still, then swung its tail. The spike struck with force, light and sound breaking through the storm. One shadow burst apart. Another fled into the trees. The storm screamed louder. The Stegosaurus stepped forward. Its plates lit with pale fire. The ground trembled with every move. The wind pushed hard, but the creature did not waver. Elijah shouted into the storm. "Leave it!" His voice was swallowed by thunder, but the Stegosaurus turned slightly, acknowledging his presence. The shadows attacked again. The creature moved in a circle, always turning, tail sweeping wide. It struck the ground, the trees, the wind itself. And each time it struck, the shadows fell back. Then, one leaped onto its back. The plates flashed. Energy surged through the creature. It reared back and threw the attacker high into the air. The shadow fell and vanished. Elijah ran to the spiral. He placed both hands on the stone. "I understand," he whispered. "You're not just a fossil. You're a guardian." The spiral pulsed beneath his fingers. The rain slowed. The clouds broke. One final shadow stepped forward, larger than the rest, eyes burning. It let out a sound that cut the air. The Stegosaurus faced it, tail raised. Time slowed. Elijah could feel both forces pulling the world apart. The hunger of the shadow. The silence of the Stegosaurus. With one last strike, the tail swung. The spike hit the ground. Light burst from the spiral. The ridge glowed. The shadow shattered into dust. The storm stopped. Silence returned. The Stegosaurus turned to Elijah. It walked past him slowly, each step heavy with meaning. Then, it returned to the fossil site, where the plates still rose from the mud. It lay down once more, its form fading into the ground, its glow sinking into stone. The spiral dimmed. Elijah fell to his knees, soaked, tired, but filled with something deep and clear. He had seen it. Not just bones. Not just dreams. The memory of the earth had risen, and chosen to stand. The storm had passed, leaving behind a deep stillness. The ridge looked broken and washed clean. Trees leaned as if exhausted. The excavation site was quiet. Only the plates of the Stegosaurus remained above the soft, wet earth. They no longer glowed, but they held a certain presence, solid and unshaken. Elijah sat beside them, soaked to the bone. His hands rested on his knees. He breathed slowly, trying to understand what had happened. Had it all been real? The lightning, the shadows, the creature rising from stone? He looked at the spiral near the base of the fossil. It no longer pulsed, but something had changed. It looked deeper, etched not just into rock, but into time itself. Voices called his name. Dr. Keller and the others climbed the slope, eyes wide, gear soaked. They had seen the flashes of light from the camp. They had heard the roar in the storm. Now, they looked at Elijah and the fossil, unsure what to say. "It came alive," Elijah said softly. They stared at him, silent. It fought something. Protected the spiral. I saw it. Dr. Keller stepped forward, cautious. She examined the fossil plates. She reached out and touched one. This wasn't like this before, she said. The shape, the edges are sharper. More complete. Another researcher found strange prints in the mud. Large, deep, and too perfect to be just erosion. The team grew quiet. No one could explain them. No one dared try. They set up equipment, took samples, measured everything. But Elias stayed near the plates. He didn't need to measure anything. He had seen enough. What mattered wasn't in numbers or data. It was in memory. That night, back at the cabin, his grandfather waited by the fire. You saw it, didn't you? He asked without turning his head. Elijah nodded. The old man smiled, just slightly. The land remembers. In the days that followed, the team worked carefully. News spread of the find. Scientists from other states arrived. They called it one of the most complete Stegosaurus fossils ever discovered. But Elijah knew it was more than that. He noticed something strange happening around the hills. The birds returned in greater numbers. The trees looked stronger. Wildflowers bloomed early. The air smelled rich and new. The land was healing. One morning, Elijah walked back to the fossil. He brought his sketchbook and sat near the plates. The wind moved gently over the ridge. He opened the book and began to draw, not just the bones, but the creature he had seen, alive and moving, standing against the storm. He drew the spiral too, right beneath its feet. When he finished, he looked at the picture for a long time. A low sound echoed from the stones. It was not a roar. Not a thump. Just a whisper, deep and clear. A reminder. The Stegosaurus was still there. In the ground. In the story. In the world. More people came to the hills. Not just scientists, but visitors, students, artists. Some walked the ridge quietly. Others painted the rocks. A few left small stones around the spiral, like offerings. No one could explain why they felt drawn to it, but they came anyway. Elijah met a girl named Mira who loved dinosaurs too. She had read every book she could find about the Jurassic world. She believed in stories, not just fossils. They became friends and walked the hills together. One day, she asked, "Do you think it was protecting something ancient? Like a message?" Elijah nodded. Not just ancient. Alive. Together they built a small circle of stones around the spiral. Not to trap it, but to honor it. As a reminder. The scientists agreed to leave the spiral untouched. The rest of the fossil was carefully prepared for study, but that part stayed in the earth. Elijah's grandfather wrote a short article for a local paper. He didn't describe the storm. He didn't explain the prints. He just said, some places carry more than rock. They carry memory. And memory sometimes stands up and walks. Over time, the story became legend. Some said the storm had awakened something. Others claimed it was just imagination. But those who walked the ridge alone at night sometimes felt a low rumble under their feet. And some swore they saw a shape in the mist, tall and plated, standing still before it vanished with the wind. Elijah never stopped returning to the site. He grew older. He kept drawing. He kept walking the hills. The spiral remained where it had always been, silent but strong. And every so often, in the quiet before a storm, he would sit by the fossil and whisper. I remember. Years passed. The hills changed little, but the world beyond them grew louder and faster. Cities pushed outward. Roads cut through old paths. But the ridge where the Stegosaurus lay remained untouched. The fossil site became a protected area, watched over by scientists, historians, and those who understood its deeper meaning. Elijah, now in his 20s, stood at the edge of the ridge once again. His boots pressed into the same soil that had held the creature's plates. The spiral was still there. It had not faded. The wind moved around him, soft and steady, as if welcoming him home. He crouched near the fossil, resting his hand gently on the ground. He no longer needed to speak to the stone. The connection ran deeper than words. Mira arrived beside him, carrying a satchel of notebooks and photos. She had grown too, her eyes still full of wonder. They had stayed in touch all these years, bound by the same memory, the same night that changed everything. They've approved the new visitor center, she said. But the ridge will stay off limits. No digging. No lights. Elijah smiled. Good. It needs to stay quiet. They sat together, watching the sun drift behind the distant trees. Do you still think about it? She asked. Every day, he answered. He had never forgotten the storm. The lightning. The roar. The way the Stegosaurus had moved, not like a memory, but like a guardian. A part of the land that had stood up to protect itself. Scientists still debated the spiral. Some said it was a natural rock formation. Others argued it was symbolic, like ancient carvings. But no one had found another like it. No one could explain why people felt drawn to it, why children who visited often dreamed of dinosaurs, or why the hills felt awake. Elijah and Mira had collected dozens of stories. People from around the world wrote letters. Some sent drawings. Others shared dreams. A few even claimed they had heard footsteps in the night near the ridge. It was more than a fossil now. It was a living story. Elijah became a writer. His books blended science with myth, facts with feeling. He never claimed what he saw was provable. He only wrote what he believed, that some creatures leave behind more than bones. They leave behind echoes. And sometimes, those echoes answer. Mira became a naturalist. She taught children how to explore, how to listen to the land, how to see the shape of time in a single stone. She led hikes up to the viewing platform near the ridge. She always told the story of the boy who found the fossil and how it changed everything. Together, they made sure the memory stayed alive. One autumn evening, Elijah stood alone near the spiral. The sky was wide and orange, and the wind moved gently through the grass. He closed his eyes and breathed deep. In that stillness, he felt it again. Not fear. Not wonder. But a sense of presence. The land remembered. He imagined the Stegosaurus walking once more. Not in a museum, not in a book, but right here, in this very place. Slow. Steady. Strong. The creature did not roar. It did not chase. It moved with purpose. It endured. That was its gift. Not speed. Not teeth. Endurance. Elijah opened his eyes. The spiral glowed faintly in the last light of day. It pulsed once, soft and deep. He smiled. Not everything needs to be explained. Some things are meant to be honored. Remembered. protected. As he walked back down the hill, the stars began to appear. The ridge behind him stood quiet, holding its story. The Stegosaurus was still there, in the ground, in the memory, in the breath of the hills. It had walked the world once. And in some quiet way, it still did.